Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae. Thank you for following along with us this afternoon. A jury in Hinesville, Georgia, they are hearing day 6 of testimony in the trial against a former JAG officer, Mindi Kassotis. He's facing several charges, including malice murder for allegedly killing and dismembering his wife, Mindi, back in 2022. He's also an author. He maintains his innocence, insisting that he never hurt his wife, even though her body parts were strewn across 2 separate locations near Savannah, Georgia. The defense claims that the couple was living in fear and that their client only acted on the advice of his mystery handler, Jim McIntyre. We've been hearing a lot of family and friends on the stand in this case, and we're getting ready to hear together the first wife of this defendant, the one he married before he married the victim. Before we get you back into court for that next witness, who might be one of the final ones for the state's case, here's Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft with a background of this case.
December 2nd, 2022, deer hunters in Riceboro, Georgia, find the torso of a nude, headless woman deep in the woods of a local hunting club. Investigators found the rest of her remains scattered within a 3 to 4 mile radius across 3 counties. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations released composite sketches of the unidentified woman in hopes of giving her a name. 5 months later, on May 11th, 2023, police announced that they found the remains of Mindi Kassotis. They used DNA from family members to make the positive identification. Mindi Kassotis was 40 years old when she was killed. The day after her remains were identified, her husband, Nicholas, was arrested in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
So this case, as the court knows, is incredibly gruesome in a way that I believe will create additional trauma.
Nicholas Kassotis, who is also known by the alias Nicholas Killian James Stark, was extradited back to Georgia and charged with malice murder, aggravated assault, and removal of human body parts from the scene of death. Prosecutors say in the months before Mindi's death, she and Nicholas were on the run because of an outstanding $1.5 million judgment owed to his first wife, Heather Thomas.
Its motive for him being on the run, it explains this story started all because of this.
Local station WTOC was in the courtroom when his attorney argued that the money was not the motive, but that a mystery man named Jim McIntyre was involved with the case.
Jim McIntyre, whether clearly that wasn't his real name, absolutely exists. They were living, moving every few days, few weeks, few months at the control of this person that we'll just keep calling Jim McIntyre.
Nicholas Kassotis has pleaded not guilty. If he is convicted, he could be sentenced to up to life in prison.
That ex-wife, who you just heard the attorneys arguing over whether or not she could testify, is on the stand right now. We're going to go in and listen to Heather Thomas. We don't know if she's going to be able to talk about why they got a divorce and whether or not she can explain why he owed her $1.5 million. Let's listen together.
Say your name, please.
Heather Thomas.
Where do you live?
Alexandria, Virginia.
Did you travel here from Alexandria, Virginia to testify for this trial?
Yes, I did.
How are you employed?
I work for the federal government at the Department of Commerce.
What are your duties there?
I'm a government contracting official.
Are you married?
Yes, I am.
When did you get married?
In October of 2015.
Do you have any children?
Yes, I have one daughter.
How old is she?
She's 8.
Is your husband employed?
Yes.
Where is he employed?
The Department of Defense.
From where you're seated, can you see the defendant, Nicholas Kassotis, in this case?
Yes.
Do you know that person?
Yes.
How do you know him?
I was married to him.
From when to when?
2009 to 2015.
How did you meet?
On eHarmony.
And how long after meeting him was it that you became married?
Very quickly after.
Was he in the military?
Yes.
What branch?
The Navy.
What was his job in the Navy?
He was a JAG officer.
At some point while he was in the Navy, was he deployed to Italy?
Yes.
From when to when?
2011 to 2013.
And what was his job when he was in Italy?
He worked as a prosecutor.
While you guys were in Italy, did he acquire a dog?
We acquired a dog,
And what was the dog's name?
Rusty.
I'm showing you a photograph now and ask if you can identify that.
Yes,
What's it a picture of?
that's my dog, Rusty.
Does it fairly and accurately depict the way Rusty appeared?
Yes,
You're getting emotional. Why is that?
I was lucky enough to spend the last 2 years of his life with him,
Living at your place?
living at our house, yes.
I'll tender at this time State's Exhibit 2.46.
Any objection?
No objection.
It is admitted.
During the time of your marriage to the defendant, did he ever work out of the Pentagon?
Yes,
Do you know what his job there was?
it was all, I only knew it was code 13.
Do you know what that means?
No, I don't.
Also, during the time that you were married, did he have occasion to attend Georgetown University?
Yes,
Where's that located?
in Washington, D.C.
And do you know what his area of study was?
I believe it was international.
In the beginning of your relationship, can you describe for the jury your relationship to him?
Yes, it was pretty much what I thought was a normal relationship. Very smooth sailing, never fought, kind of like best friends in a way.
Did he ever indicate to you whether he wanted children?
Yes, he did. We both did.
Do you have a medical condition that makes that unlikely?
Yes, I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS.
Notwithstanding that medical condition, were you able to get pregnant while married with him?
Yes,
And what happened to that pregnancy?
it was lost.
How did your relationship change over time?
It felt like we were more roommates instead of married.
Whose idea was it to get a divorce?
I believe it was mutual, but more so myself.
And there was a proceeding that was filed in the Circuit Court of Fairfax County, Virginia, concerning this matter?
Yes,
And if you had an opportunity to view State's Exhibit 2.45A, 45B, 45C, 45D, and 45E prior to coming in here today,
yes, I have.
and you recognize these as documents pertaining to your divorce,
Yes,
I'll tender each of these exhibits, Your Honor. They're certified copies of those documents that I've shown to opposing counsel. No objection, Your Honor.
All right, then, A, B, C, D, and E, 2.45, they're all admitted without objection.
After the action for divorce was filed, did you become separated?
yes,
Did you move out?
yes, I did.
Where did you move to?
I moved nearby in Alexandria.
During the period of separation, were there discussions about infidelity?
Of course,
And who raised those?
Nick did.
Did you cheat on him during the course of your marriage?
No,
How quickly was the divorce granted after the petition was filed?
It was granted in October of 2015.
Now, the court documents show Nicholas James Kassotis as the plaintiff in this divorce, and you're referred to as the defendant.
Yes.
Why is that?
We both didn't have a need for an attorney. He was an attorney, and he said he could take care of it, and I trusted him that he would.
Heather Thomas here, just really giving almost emotional testimony about her marriage to the defendant. Let's bring in National Trial Attorney Michael Jafer, who's watching this along with us. Michael, your thoughts on them using Heather Thomas at the end or near end of their case, that decision to use her here?
I think it's massive, because she is going to shed light on a very big mysterious part of this case, which is his behavior in this whole entire $1.5 million judgment. And I think she broke the jury's heart. Her performance is amazing. The fact that she couldn't have a kid, and she talked about it. Looks like she was going to cry. I got emotional just hearing her talk about it. I think it was a very faithful decision. I think it was an intentional decision. And I think ultimately it would be a good decision.
Let's get to our break so we can hear more of it on the other side. Stay with us. You're watching Court TV.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, the final state witnesses in the dismembered wife murder trial. We'll unpack today's key testimony, getting you ready for the defense case.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Donna Adelson is facing charges of murder, the death of her former son-in-law.
This is terrible. Now that Donna has turned into a defendant, what's next for the Adelson clan?
The matriarch mastermind murder trial begins next week, only on Court TV.
We are in day 6 of this Georgia trial we've been watching for Nicholas Kassotis, the dismembered wife murder trial, where the victim is Mindi Kassotis, his wife, who was found in the woods at a hunting club. And she wasn't identified for 5 months because of the way that her remains were dismembered. The defense is pointing away from Nicholas, the husband here, and they say it's a mystery man who was controlling the movements of this couple, Jem McIntyre, who we haven't seen inside of this courtroom or any proof that he actually exists. Let's get you back into the courtroom listening to the defendant's first wife, Heather Thomas.
Can you see from where you're seated a photograph, State's Exhibit number 2.32? Can you see it?
Yes.
Do you recognize the person in this photograph?
Yes.
Who is this person?
It's Mindi.
How did you know Mindi?
I knew her as his wife, his new wife.
Do you recall when you first met her?
It was by happenstance in a public setting. She had no idea who I was.
When he would refer to her, how would he refer to her?
Can you clarify that?
By initials?
Yes, M.
And the grounds for the divorce were what?
Irreconcilable differences.
What were his obligations under the divorce?
He was required to pay off the personal loan or refinance it if he couldn't pay it off in his own name. He was required to refinance or pay off the truck that he was driving. And he was required to either refinance or sell the property on Adrian Drive.
And at some point, was he ordered to pay you $1.5 million?
Yes.
Did he?
No.
How long after your divorce was it before he and Mindi got married, roughly?
About a year, almost to the day.
And after your divorce from him, did you continue to correspond with him?
Yes, of course. We were very friendly. It was a very amicable divorce.
And how would you communicate with him after the divorce?
Texts. He came to visit with the dogs. We had 2 dogs at the time, Stitch and Rusty. Email. Just whatever was convenient.
Do you know how he was employed during the time he was married to Mindi?
I was told that he worked for the Department of the Navy.
For how long?
I don't know.
Did he ever express interest in starting a cybersecurity business?
He mentioned cybersecurity as an area that he was interested, yes.
Between 2015 and 2019, did the defendant cooperate with the divorce obligations?
No.
Did that cause any kind of hardship to you?
Of course.
Like what?
It put me through a lot of emotional stress, but importantly, it put me through a lot of scrutiny for my own employment. I was, and still do hold a security clearance that required your credit to be good and all of your bills paid, all of that stuff. And by him not doing that for many, many months, I was in a situation where a piece of paper to submit to the Office of Personnel Management wasn't going to cut it. They wanted to see full extent of the law to pursue the resolution of that because my employment was at stake.
Referring your attention to Exhibit 2.45B, dated 11/28/18, entitled Consent Order, he was ordered to pay you the $1.5 million plus $90,000 in interest in that consent order. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And $10,000 in attorney fees.
That's correct.
And then the case was continued almost exactly 30 days to December 28th, 2018. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And was there a hearing on December 28th, 2018?
Yes.
In Exhibit 2.45C shows the court found him not in compliance with the November 28, 2018 consent order and ordered Mindi Kassotis to appear before the court on January 4th, 2019 to show cause why he should not be held in contempt.
That's right.
Did you go to that January 4th hearing?
Yes, I did.
What happened at that hearing?
The judge was very upset after he heard Nick testify under oath that he not only had the money, he had more than enough of the money, and that he just was refusing to pay it. So the judge was not very kind.
He admitted having how much money?
$32 million.
And did he tell the court he was having difficulty accessing that money?
Yes.
What did he tell the court?
He told the court that his wife, his current wife, Mindi, was holding his funds and that he thought that she had a claim to it because it was earned during his marriage with her, and that he was pursuing other actions with her. But the judge was like, well, I can't bring her into court, but you're here, so you need to put a move on it, and I want this done. I want to see movement in a week, otherwise your liberty is at stake.
Now, before that hearing, was there another similar hearing that occurred?
Yes.
What happened at that similar hearing?
There was a case right before ours where very similar circumstances, though not to the degree or the amount owed by any means, was playing out, and we were both in the courtroom. And that ended where the spouse that owed the money left in handcuffs. And so Nick asked to meet with my attorney and I in the mediation room after we continued. And that's when the additional $90,000 and the $10,000 came from.
So was Nick in the courtroom to witness that incident where the man was taken out in
Yes.
handcuffs? Did he ever comply with that court order for the $1.5 million, the interest and the attorney fees?
No.
I'm showing you now what's marked as 2.45E. Do you know what that is?
Yes.
Go ahead.
It's a bench warrant for failure to appear.
A bench warrant for who?
For Nick.
And it's dated when?
December 23rd, 2020.
Have you ever threatened him with violence?
No.
Are you familiar with him changing his last name?
I did not find that out until after he was arrested.
And did he ever explain to you why he changed the name?
No.
Are you familiar with the last name of Stark?
It made me think of the Game of Thrones character, frankly.
And who is that character?
That was one of the main characters that was probably, I think, killed first.
Did you and the defendant watch the Game of Thrones during the time you were married?
Yes.
At some point, did you become familiar with the GBI sketch?
Yes.
Tell the jury about that. How did you become familiar with it?
Well, I received a random text message asking if I was ever married to Nick. And of course, I was hesitant to respond to a stranger, but nonetheless, the curiosity got the best of me. And so she told me about...
Objection to hearsay.
Sustain the objection.
Based on what she told you, what'd you do?
Based on what she told me, I looked it up, and I saw a similarity as far as the sketch was concerned, and I called the GBI to let them know that that looks remarkably like Mindi because of the jawline.
Did you tell the GBI who you were?
No, I did not.
Now, I believe your testimony was you remarried shortly after the divorce.
Yes, I did.
Was there a time that the defendant saw you after your divorce when you were pregnant?
Yes.
Were you obviously pregnant?
Yes.
And describe to the jury what happened on that occasion when the defendant saw you pregnant.
Nick was very uncomfortable when he saw me. He did utter the congratulations, but the body language wasn't matching. Later on after that meeting, which is actually the last time that I saw my other dog, Stitch, my husband made very similar comments, saying that it was very awkward and that he could tell that Nick was very uncomfortable.
That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Weinstein?
That wraps up the direct examination, and wow, we've learned a lot in this direct from this witness. She just said that she helped identify the second wife of her ex to the GBI. She saw that sketch, and from the times that she had seen Mindi, she thought that it looked remarkably like her. Also interesting that she said that Nick Kassotis would have seen someone else being held in contempt of court in that divorce proceeding, and he didn't want to be held in contempt as well. He told the court he had $32 million, access to it through Mindi. Meanwhile, we've been hearing that Mindi was being told that there was money somewhere that he had access to if they went on the run. A lot here. We'll get that cross-examination after this break. Stay with us. You're watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae. We are going to go right back into that Georgia courtroom where we are watching big testimony in the dismembered wife murder trial for Nicholas Kassotis. He's charged with murder in the death of his second wife, Mindi. Her dismembered body was found in multiple places back in December of 2022. And we've been listening to testimony from his first wife that he divorced before he then married the victim in this case. Let's pick it up right where we left off with Heather Thomas on the stand.
Good afternoon, Ms. Thomas. I'm Doug Weinstein. I'm representing Nick Kassotis in this case. I have a few questions for you. Your divorce from Nick Kassotis was final on October 15th, 2015, correct?
That's correct.
When did you get married to your husband, to Anthony Thomas?
Yeah, October 16th.
The very next day?
Yes.
Nick raised the issue of infidelity with you, correct?
Yeah.
He accused you of infidelity.
Yes.
And do you still maintain that you did not commit infidelity?
Correct. I met my husband well after we had already separated. I had not started dating my husband until July. And while that does seem fast, it is possible to find the love of your life.
say that Nick failed to follow the obligations in your initial divorce decree, correct?
Correct.
And that he was supposed to pay off some type of a loan, either refinance it, but pay it off so you're off the loan, correct?
Correct, yeah. Just remove my name, however he wanted to do that.
He was supposed to pay off the truck, and he was supposed to refinance or sell I guess the marital home that y'all had.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And he did not do those things, correct?
That's right.
And you pursued him to do those things.
Absolutely.
And following that, there was a consent order, correct?
That's right.
And that consent order was from, I guess, November 28th, 2018. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And in that consent order, can you tell me this? How did you reach the consent order? How did you reach the numbers in the consent order? How did you come up with the figures? How did you guys come up with the figures in the consent order?
We came up with the figures. We had an addendum made that we mutually agreed to, and we had notarized, and we had added. So it was then part of the divorce decree.
And when you say we, that's you and Nick and I guess whatever attorneys were involved. Is that correct?
He never had an attorney, but yes, I had an attorney.
Okay. And so that $1.5 million that he had agreed to pay you, he agreed to that. He agreed to the $1.5 million in the course of the negotiation, correct?
Correct.
And had you seen any evidence that Nick had $1.5 million?
No.
Have you seen, or at the time, or at any time, did you see any evidence that Nick Kassotis had the $32 million that he said he had?
When he testified under oath.
I understand that. Did you see any, did you see any documentation of the $32 million?
No.
Bank statements?
Oh, yes.
That showed $32 million?
They were fake, but yes.
And when you followed up on that, do you remember the bank?
Bank of America?
Okay. Did you do anything with Bank of America to see if there was $32 million in there?
I tried filing the judgment in every single banking institution in the Virginia area, sir.
And were you successful at getting the $1.5 million from any of those banks?
No.
What did they say about the $32 million when you presented Bank of America with those statements?
They've never heard of them.
You say that both you and your husband thought that Nick Kassotis was uncomfortable when he saw that you were pregnant. Does it surprise you that an ex-husband is uncomfortable when he sees his ex-wife pregnant?
It depends. If you have a good relationship before then and you already knew about it, then seeing it probably wouldn't have made a big difference.
The GBI interviewed you prior to today, correct?
That's right.
Do you recall telling the GBI that Heather was living with you guys?
I'm Heather.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Mindi.
Yes, and I corrected them immediately because that was not true.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you very much.
Anything else, Counsel?
May she be excused?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Have a good day.